Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Big Mike back here with you once again. Today, we're going to take a little break from the wrestling, talk about something I haven't talked about in a little while, and that is the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, I've been watching the MCU from day one, that being Iron Man 1, and I'm not going to talk about the whole thing because that would take way too much time. Maybe I'll do that individually sometime down in the future. But for now, I'm going to focus on Phase 4, which has its ups and downs, but overall, I feel like has been very entertaining. So, let's get us started with WandaVision. Now, originally, WandaVision wasn't meant to be the first Disney Plus show released for Marvel. It was meant to be Falcon and the Winter Soldier. But that got pushed back due to rewrites. I'll fill you in why in a minute. I feel like WandaVision was a very interesting journey. We saw Wanda Maximoff dealing with her grief after losing pretty much everyone in her life. Her parents, her brother, and now Vision, the love of her life. So much so that it broke her and made her develop essentially a pocket universe within a small town in New Jersey. Overall, I think this storytelling method was less action and more, like I said, watching Wanda go through the different layers of grief, which very sad, but honestly very understandable, especially if you've lost a loved one. Very entertaining watch. Although my only issue is that Wanda, at the end, pretty much gets away with it. And I know that was to set up Doctor Strange, the next Doctor Strange movie. We'll get to it. But I feel like maybe if she was in the raft for a little bit, I'd feel a little bit better. But overall, the ending just didn't do it for me. Kind of brought the show down for me. So, next up, we have the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, in which we saw Sam Wilson dealing with not only feeling inadequate when at the end of Endgame, Steve Rogers gave him a shield, pretty much nominating him for the new Captain America, which initially he does reject, but then he grows into it, which it's an interesting story within itself. But then you got the Red Hand, I want to say it was. I forget the villain. The villains were really forgettable. That's one of my other issues. Like, I don't know, all this super soldier stuff has kind of become uninteresting to me, Like, don't get me wrong, it's ingrained in the history of Marvel and the MCU right now, but I don't know. I feel like it could have been done a little bit better. Whoops. I do also feel like they missed a step with Bucky Barnes, in that in the show we see him dealing with the hits he'd taken out as the Winter Soldier under Hydra's control. Ultimately, this leads to one really sad interaction that I wish we had more with, as during a hit, he actually took out an innocent bystander, which he then has to deal with throughout the show, which I kind of liked. Like, it proves that, even with going to Wakanda for the cure, Bucky wasn't really cured of the Winter Soldier influence. It's still terrorizes him to this day, which I love that type of storytelling. It works. And I wish we had more of that in this show. Next show, and I think it's the last one for a little bit, it's Loki, which honestly I kind of saw coming with Endgame. We saw a version of Loki get away with the Tesseract, aka the Space Stone. And then here's my issue with this. With this now, we kind of erased the kind of anti-hero journey that we saw Loki go on. Like, I feel like this was kind of a misstep for that. However, revisiting this journey with this Loki under this new condition with the TVA was actually a lot of fun. And then we got to meet the one at the end of it all, aka the future Kang the Conqueror, which, man, I can't wait for that. Like, I believe he's debuting in the next Ant-Man movie, which is coming in February. So that's going to be interesting. All right, our first movie, we get back to the theaters, kind of. I think that this only came out on digital, on Disney Plus. It's Black Widow. Ultimately, an interesting story and why Wanda Maximoff is drawn to found families, considering she was a part of a secret family for years. So I did find that kind of interesting. Then she and Yelena were taken to the Red Room, trained, and now they're assassins. We did get to see what happened in Budapest, which we can finally put that to bed. And I know a lot of people had issue with the Taskmaster. Now, would I have wished it was more the comic book version? Yeah, but I didn't really mind this version. Like, narrative-wise, it does make sense that, this ultimately innocent bystander who was the daughter of the leader of the Red Room, who Black Widow was trying to assassinate, would want a little revenge. And, narratively, it makes sense. Also, the guy playing, essentially the Russian Captain America was very entertaining. Like, I loved every scene he was in. The final battle was a bit interesting. We had the Sky Fortress Red Room, which was very, very weird. Army of Widows. And to block, I believe there was some pheromone this guy used to mask his scent or whatever. I don't really understand that. So to counteract that, Black Widow broke her nose, which, I don't know. It ultimately, this placement just feels a little weird. I think this movie should have happened after Civil War, at least, because in the timeline that's where this is. But ultimately, it was a pretty entertaining movie. Not the best thing we could have seen from Black Widow, but ultimately I was entertained by it. I believe next was What If, which is a show based on a similar named comic, which is about alternate history in Marvel. Like, what if Peggy Carter got the super soldier serum instead of Steve Rogers? Which was the first episode, a little basic. We got a little taste of the zombie universe. We got a little taste of if Loki wasn't found by Odin, which I found really interesting. And then, yeah, it ultimately culminated in a multiversal Avengers team, which I'm kind of okay with, but I don't know where they fit in. I mean, that's just me. Next movie, I believe, was Shang-Chi, which, holy shnikes, this was a good film. Narratively, it was alright. Action-wise, I absolutely loved it. The setting was awesome. We got to deal with new, different, interesting locales. I got a very unexpected return I didn't see coming in Trevor Slattery. Look him up if you don't remember him. That's an interesting character. Yeah, overall, a very entertaining, fun kung fu movie. That ultimately did lead to some really good visuals in the end. That end battle was that was beautiful. And now a bit of a controversial one, because I know there's a lot of dislike for the movie, but personally I do like it. It's Eternals. And it definitely leads to some questions of, where they've been. Were they just chilling while the Chitauri invasion happened, etc., etc.? Now, it was definitely less action-based and more narrative, telling the kind of whole story of the Eternals. There was definitely a big twist I didn't see coming in that the Eternals were essentially constructs made by the Celestials to breed more Celestials. Like, watch the movie. It's actually kind of an interesting take. And now we got a dead Celestial out in the Atlantic somewhere, I think. So, yeah, pretty entertaining movie. Definitely not the best step from the MCU, but I enjoyed it. Next show. Oh boy, this was a big old step for Marvel. Moon Knight. I've been looking forward to this show since it was announced. It's pretty much a guy dealing with a multi-personal personality disorder in which, guy with a mental disability is playing hero. I love that. That's my demographic. Surprise, I got a mental disability. The action was very entertaining. I loved the changing of the suits between the two personalities. I thought that was a great little twist to the more basic Moon Knight story. Side characters were entertaining. Main villain was really, really good. Ended with a CGI big monster battle, which I thought was a little weird, but I kind of enjoyed it. Like, if you haven't seen the Moon Knight show already, go give it a watch, because I was very entertained by this. Next up, first kind of big misstep by Marvel for me, and that's Thor: Love and Thunder, the first of the original team to get a fourth movie, which, figure that out. Now, it did briefly include the Guardians of the Galaxy at the beginning, which I kind of want to see them together a little more. I thought that dynamic would have been fun, especially between Thor and Star-Lord. But overall, I had a good time with it. I do wish more of the gods that we did see went with Thor, so we could add a God Squad, which I thought was very weird, but oh well. And I know a lot of people are complaining about Zeus's portrayal, that he's just, he only cares about orgies and he's silly. if you look back on Greek myth, or even Roman myth, that was pretty much Zeus. He only cared about getting some. Like, he literally turned himself into a bull so he can have relations with a woman, and that created the Minotaur. Like I get it. Other, properties have depicted Zeus as this badass god among gods. But ultimately, he's at least according to myth, he's really not like that. He's really like what we got in the MCU. So, yeah, enough with that. Next show, I believe, is... Oh, it's She-Hulk, obviously. Now, obviously there's a lot of people who have problems with it. I do have some problems of my own. CGI wasn't always the best during that time. Was it a little silly at times? Of course, but that's She-Hulk. She was breaking fourth walls even before Deadpool. So, yeah, that's going to be an interesting thing. We got Daredevil in this show, which I enjoyed. There's some side characters I really did like. There was really no basic Marvel formula in this. There wasn't like a ton of action, and even if there was kind of a parody, considering we saw Matt Murdock in a small hallway akin to the Netflix series of Daredevil. And yeah, I was really entertained by this. Was it boring at parts? Sure. Did the side characters kind of carry this show a bit? Yeah, maybe a little bit. But from what I saw from Jennifer Walters, I enjoyed it. I really did enjoy the show. Despite some issues, I do think it was a good show. And next up, oh boy, the thing to finalize Phase 4. Black Panther Wakanda Forever, which I just saw on Monday. And, oh boy, it was a roller coaster ride. You had a great tribute of Chadwick Boseman and technically T'Challa. Yeah, didn't pull any punches. Namor, I feel like, was almost the star of the show. And he as much as you want to call him the villain of this movie, he really wasn't. Like, it's kind of understandable. They did the underwater scenes beautifully, I might add. Like, I don't want to go into too many details because this movie just came out and I want y'all to see it. But I'm just gonna say I really loved this movie. A lot of good action, a lot of interesting characters, a lot of crazy character development. Like, geez. It was a fun, entertaining film with a lot of good messages behind it. Alright, that's it for me for Phase 4. I hope y'all enjoyed. Please like, comment, subscribe. Oh, you know what? Before I do that, overall, yeah, the MCU Phase 4 has had its ups and downs. Some wins and some losses. But overall, I think this is technically Phase 1 again. Like, it's not a reboot. It's kind of like when you have different issues of the same character in the comics. It's the same characters and some new ones, but it's a different journey. And I feel like this was a decent first step into the multiverse saga. Oh man, I actually missed a couple movies. God damn it. There's Spider-Man No Way Home, in which ultimately I did enjoy, but I feel like most of the people were excited only for the cameos. You know, Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, Doc Ock, Green Goblin, Lizard, Electro, Sandman, and whoever else was cameoing in that. I do feel like Doctor Strange was a little silly in this one. Like, I know he wasn't Sorcerer Supreme anymore, but I I feel like him granting Spider-Man's wish here was a bit irresponsible on Doctor Strange's side. Like, usually he's the stern adult in this situation. But then everything goes awry and we get that adventure. Our first kind of foray into the multiverse. Oh, and a little note on Loki, too. I don't think in Loki the multiverse was recreated. I think what happens is those branches we see at the TVA more represent bridges to other universes. So I think that kind of makes sense to me. Like, I don't think Loki actually recreated the multiverse in that. So the doors are opening wider, and we'll see what happens there. Although I did feel like it was nostalgia baiting with Andrew and the rest of them. So my enjoyment of the actual story of the film was kind of lessened a bit. Although it did hit hard in one scene. I'll tell you that much. And the kind of jumping off point really into the multiverse was Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, in which we see Scarlet Witch going a little crazy, trying to get her kids back. I'm not going to try to do many spoilers, but I will say, as much as I did enjoy this, I wish there was a bit more of a trip through the multiverse. You know, seeing multiple dimensions instead of just two. And that finish, oi, it still annoys me to this day. And I do feel like America Chavez is a decent character, and we'll see what happens to her. Alright, that is actually it from me. I hope you guys all enjoyed. Please like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you thought overall about Phase 4. What was your favorite show or movie? What was your least favorite? And are you excited for what's coming in Phases 5 and 6? Because I tell you, I am. Alright, until next time. Peace.